So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently watching our video blog and listens to our podcast. Today's the 13th, I believe, of April, and it's an important election that's taking place currently in Hungary. And I'm gonna briefly talk about some of the things that could happen and, the pros and cons of a new government in Hungary. Now, one big disclaimer, I want to make sure that you guys understand we're not trying to endorse or interfere in any foreign government's or country's election. We're simply reviewing certain conditions that might manifest in such events. There's no, where we're not trying to take sides. We're just looking into certain conditions that might take place, and this is what our channel is for, and this is what we try to do, is to make certain assessments on geopolitics, geoeconomics, current events, and world affairs around the world. Hence our faceconomics platform, the utilization of the social media platform in economic development worldwide. So I haven't really reviewed the overall results yet of the election. I heard that the opposition party to Mr. Orbán's, who has been in Hungary's government for quite some time, is leading. So the opposition has a chance to get him out, basically, and connect Hungary with Brussels and develop a more in-line agenda with the European Union. So just a brief history on Mr. Orbán and what he's been doing in the last few years pertaining to his opposition to certain policies that are coming out of Brussels. So out of all European countries, or EU member countries, I should say, Mr. Orbán has led an alternative option for the Hungarian population in reference to certain policies that have been endorsed by the European Union. So the 27 member countries have been basically supporting the agenda of the EU for the most part until the United Kingdom left the 28 member countries with the Brexit referendum, because they didn't want to be a part of the European Union or be subjected to EU's policy. So that's just one example why Mr. Orbán have decided to basically counter certain policies that is not in the best interest of his country pertaining to the EU. And he's been adamant regarding his opposition for continued support, mainly sending funds and guarantees to Ukraine, which is not an EU member country and not a NATO member country. So he was opposing that because when all these countries joined the EU, they was to support member countries and NATO member countries, not non-member NATO countries or not-member EU countries. Now, there are European countries that are in the process of joining the EU, and that's okay. You know, they can join, but as long as they're not a member according to the Constitution of the European Union, they're not going to be afforded the same privileges as member countries, and that's what Mr. Orban has been promoting. So now that he could lose his position, it's very likely that all the time and effort, energy that he's put into countering and providing his voice to an alternative to certain policies by the European Union will now be dismantled. Okay, and when that were to take place, it's very likely that Hungary will be more aligned with the agenda of the European Union, mainly continuously support the war conflict in favor of Ukraine, and it could prolong the conflict, and basically create more uncertainties and friction among member countries in Europe, economically and politically. So that's what I'm guessing will happen. Now, obviously, it's just an assessment. We're not endorsing, we're not trying to, take sides. We're simply providing an assessment of what could happen. Okay, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that we're not trying to get involved in foreign politics and foreign governments activity, because one, we're not a citizen of those countries, and two, we have problems in our society ourselves in the US that needs to be fixed. So that's something that needs to be shared out there. But yeah, so what I was saying is that there are potential ramification of this evolving political condition in Hungary, given that they're the only country for the most part within the EU system that oppose, or at least Orban's government opposes the war and continued support to the war by the EU. But on top of that, they have been, mostly the population have been influenced by certain market conditions that were withdrawn and precipitated by them opposing the European Union agenda. So they felt it in their economy, and hence the vote that is now leaning towards the opposition. Okay, folks, and that's always the case when people are struggling and suffering. They will find a way to locate relief and assistance and whatever it is that will make life easier on them. And most governments and most countries and politicians know that. It's not a mystery. The way you change hearts and minds is if you change hearts and minds via policy, via economy. So that's just the reality of politics. Here in Virginia, for example, we have this issue with gerrymandering, in which it's certain votes will be lump-sided as certain representatives. is going to be either reduced or increase in numbers within the General Assembly. So it's the same old game plan, folks. You disrupt people's lives, make things harder on people, then they'll change sides. They'll find a way to find relief. Okay, that's just the reality of politics, and sometimes it affects people long term more than they realize in the short term that they make decisions on their politics. That's just how it is. But with that said, we shall see the overall results of the election this evening. I'm gonna review and talk about it in detail in my next podcast this evening, and kind of unpack certain conditions that manifested leading up to this election. Now, most Central and Eastern European countries, or if not all of them, are in favor of supporting Ukraine, obviously, because it's within their neighborhood and proximity. But now that the only country, basically the only vocal prime minister that is opposing certain conditions in the overall situation with Ukraine and their overall predicament, economically speaking, is that this is going to be a major event and could escalate to an even problematic situation throughout Europe. And this is, like I said, an assessment. I'm not saying that it's going to happen or it's going to take place anytime soon. All I'm saying that there could be more disruptions throughout Europe as a continent because they're so close to each other proximity-wise, and they're all a part of the one market system. So that's just how it is, unfortunately. So my background in the region has always been in economic development, and I try to support as much trade and commercial development as I can between the U.S. and Central and Eastern Europe. But this turn of events could signal certain withdrawal of U.S. interests, business interests, and even military interests in the region. Granted that our administration currently supports and have endorsed Mr. Orban and his government. So that's just the reality of things. And like I was saying, I'm not here trying to promote or take sides or incorporate certain messages to sway the decision of the Hungarian public, because obviously I'm not Hungarian. I don't speak Hungarian, nor do I have any privileges in getting involved in their politics. So I'm not here to incorporate any of my endorsement regarding their politics. I'm just here trying to make an assessment of what could happen down the road. So, by the way, if you're interested in learning how I formulate my, ideas, hypothesis, and assessments, feel free to visit our YouTube channel, podcast, follow us our podcast, and buy our books. All my assessments and market environment strategies have been provided in those platforms that we have. So feel free to read some of our thoughts and strategies, as well as assessments via our books and platforms. Now, I'm not saying we're perfect. We know that we know everything, nor do we say that everything that we've forecasted manifested itself and became true. I'm just saying that most of what we're trying to promote and incorporated in our assessments and strategies is via our own personal experience, professionally and personally, since I used to work in the region and lived in the region. Okay, so that's what it's all about. Yeah, so what I was saying is that once I done my research on the overall issue that took place or have evolved and manifested itself, I will do a podcast this evening and talk a little bit about certain market conditions that could manifest itself in the next few months or even years in the region. So yes, folks, that's geopolitics, geoeconomics for you. And I guess since Vice President Vance have taken his time and used his position to endorse Mr. Orban in Budapest, then I believe eventually the results of this election in Hungary will come back to Washington, D.C. and will be used by the opposing sides against this administration. So yeah, that's just the reality of politics and now global politics, it seems like. But I think it's important that the public reflect on, every angle, every sides, every opinion, every concept and analysis there are to make sense of these kinds of events. Don't be left in the dark, given that we now live in a social media world and artificial intelligence generating news. Some are good news, some are fake news. Anyway, I'm here really enjoying my time in nature. Very nice and breezy afternoon. This video vlog is going to be short today since I need to go to buy something inside the store and I'm not allowed to do my video vlog inside the store. But I just thought I'd let you guys see what I'm seeing. I don't know if you can hear the breeze. It feels so good. Not too warm, not too cold. Just perfect weather. Hi, your arena number 13. Hello, thanks for joining me. Appreciate your time. And yeah, please tell your family and friends that we would appreciate them following us, subscribing to our channel, sharing our channel. All right, I'm about to cross the creek here where sometimes you come across certain, turtles, wildlife up here, because this creek is full of their diet supplements. So they typically hang out here. They're snapping turtles the size of a plate, but today they're not around. Typically when the water's not too high, you can see them blobbing up and down. Maybe we'll see them on this side. They typically bob around. Either their heads poking out of the surface, or you can see their back, which is the size of about a plate. Really big turtles. And they snap at everything that gets in front of their beaks. But they're not around today. So Oh well, maybe better luck next time. Anyhow, so yeah, Europe will definitely feel either the positive or negative effect of this election, because, like I was saying, Hungary is by far, and Mr. Orban is the most vocal opponent of certain policies pertaining to their market economy and pertaining to war in Ukraine. So this is a very big election. It's definitely going to impact not just Hungary, but Europe in general, and even our policy towards Hungary as the U.S. government will have to make certain assessments now that Hungary is no longer going to be favoring U.S. U.S. engagements in the region. Now that it's very likely this guy that is now in power, or will be in power, if the rumors are true, that he's beaten Orban, if he becomes the next prime minister, then it's very likely he's going to align with the European Union, just because of the overall, economic conditions currently in Hungary. There's a lot of people that are economically suffering, going through a lot of hardship, and basically trying to get access to resources for that market. So that's just how it is at this point in the game. The more problematic and detrimental a country market condition is, the population tend to, go to the polls and vote. And most politicians, especially seasoned and career politicians, knows this. Either they create a disruption, or they provide a solution to the disruption. And yeah, so that's just how it is. And given that Hungary is a part of the EU and a single market environment, they kind of didn't have much of a chance, given that they're surrounded by pro-EU countries and countries that favors Ukraine, and basically favors the conflict, to support Ukraine. Now, like I said, my disclaimer is I'm not taking sides. I'm simply reviewing the market conditions, because that's what I do as a consultant and analyst, looking at the pros and cons on certain market conditions. Now, I guess what would kind of manifest itself to be the pro for Hungary, now that they could have a new prime minister, is that they might get those funds that was withheld by the EU, and could get some sort of relief economically for their market. So it's the carrot and stick, and just like any other countries, the EU is actually not a country, it's a system of governments, member countries, that is trying to federalize the countries throughout Europe. So that's why they call it the European Union. They wanted to federalize everything, where they have authority over the countries that are member countries. Now, it's similar effect that happened in the U.S. Similar effect would happen in parts of Africa and eventually in Asia, where markets and countries are going to form a bloc, and they're going to compete against other blocs. Now, there's this issue with BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that tried to create a global institution to counter the US. But in my years of experience and activities in market development, creating countries, and providing opportunities in those markets, most of the time it doesn't work unless the people are all from the same group and the people all speak the same language and the identity of the population are all similar. America is like an experiment that almost worked, but it isn't quite where it was supposed to be, in terms of unity and acceptance and overall market evolution. Okay, the reason we're still intact is because we all basically use the same currency. We like the federalized system, so there's checks and balance, but we don't want an overly federalized system either. So that's not the case for some countries and markets out there, especially if they don't all speak the same language and use the same currency, and purchasing power is lump-sided. So that's just how it is. But with that said, folks, I'm where I need to go, so let's connect again in the next few hours. Make sure to follow our podcasts, and I'll try to answer some of your questions. All right, folks, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care. Bye.